Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to another D6 W podcast. I am joined, as ever, by Mark Knopfles-Murfield and Dr. Luke Blacksill. Good evening, gentlemen.
Evening,
Hey,
punks!
evening, gents. How we doing?
Oh, good, yeah. So the dust is just settling from the London Legends GT 2025, the third year that we've been running it. I don't know about you guys, but this has been my favorite event of the three that we've run. Just the feeling of it, the buzz of eighth edition, and not just the number of people who have come and the fantastic armies they've brought, but just the fact that everyone's been in high spirits and it's been a fun event.
Yeah, I think it developed its own kind of feeling this time to a greater extent because we've had three events now. We've had some continuity of the people who have come back to them, even though there has been, quite a lot of new people each time. And also the fact that this is now eighth edition, a year and a half on, there's a bit of a feeling of, I don't know, like like those dudes escaping from the castle in Eagle's Dare or whatever it is. There's like a kind of slight band of brothers kind of thing to it because we know we're, a bunch of cranks and gutter snipes who are still here. So there's a bit of feeling of, solidarity there, which I like.
I have to agree. It was by far the best event I think that I've been to. Not because of the people, just because of how easy it was. There was like
Yeah.
very few rules queries. Everybody was having a good laugh. I think we were more comfortable in what we were doing as well. So there was really little for us to do apart from obviously play a few games as well. So it was cracking.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely felt as though it kind of almost ran itself actually. And this time, I played in all five games, and Mark and Simon alternated. But to be honest, I feel we could have probably each played in all five games, and the event would still have worked. There would have been a few slight logistical challenges, perhaps with some of the stuff we have to take care of, like the pizza and also score inputting. But apart from that,
Yes, with our small issue with the online scoring.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. We had to abandon, dear viewers, Tawny Keeper. Tawny Keeper, alas, God rest its soul, was hobbling along on its last legs before discontinuation. But we tried to use it and it just broke. So we had to go back to the Excel spreadsheet.
Yeah, but you're right to put it into context. So obviously the second event that we ran was sort of 6 months after the release of Old World. This has been 18 months after the release of Old World. I wasn't sure whether we were going to, have as many people coming or kind of what the vibe would be. And, many of the people there play Old World, but there's still a sort of sizable chunk of competitive 8th ed players that don't play Old World, and that are just so happy that there are still 8th ed events going on. Um, and of course, right now, the internet is awash with rumors as to potential changes for the old world rules. And I guess what I'm thinking is, will this be enough to sort of tempt some of these competitive 8th ed players into playing the old world as well? I mean, I'm playing both editions. I don't know whether that's for everybody, but you kind of you kind of like to think that some of these competitive 8th ed players who are very good Warhammer players might want to try their hand at Old World after perhaps some of these issues have been ironed out. What do you think?
I think it should go both ways. I think people who are competitive 8th ed players who haven't really given Old World a go should give Old World a go. And people who are just born Old World players should give 8th edition a go as well. It would
Indeed.
teach them a great deal about the history of the game and give them some kind of historical context. In regards to the rumors, and we're making this recording on the 13th of June, and I think these rumors came out, I believe, 3 days ago, and it's a bunch of changes to the game that include, for example, infantry getting an outnumbering bonus, infantry getting an extra pip of armor save if they have a hand weapon and a shield. There are some other changes, points changes to things like Pegasus Knights. There's an amusing nerf to Line Hammer, maybe we think,
Hmm.
but in essence, the dragons have got a bit worse. The infantry has got a bit better, and so there might be some rebalancing there. Will it bring back the eighth ed players into Old World? I don't know, because a lot of the changes I think are more sixth ed. Outnumbering and extra armor save for infantry are both sixth ed things, and I don't think any of the changes feel very eighth ed in their nature. But I do think that they will make the game better. So
Some
maybe
people might think that you were, sorry to interrupt, Mark. Some people might think that you were quite quick to kind of jump the gun there because the rumors aren't confirmed. And I know we've had a little chat about this already, but what do you think the chances are that these rumors are not true? Because when I look at it personally, I sort of see quite detailed things that if I was going to make up some rumors, I mean, things like reducing arcane urgency to a 9 to cast, it kind of, there's little esoteric things there that make it seem like it really is a proper leak.
Yeah, so I mean, I think my feeling on that is that one of the changes in particular, which was in order to charge, skirmishers all have to be able to draw a line of sight to their target, which means getting out your laser pointer and saying, have I got like a few millimeter gap to be able to see through? That, as I was saying offline, is the kind of change that is so stupid that no fan making it up to be believed to create some disturbance, or any fan who knew the game with a wish list. Neither of them would say that. Such a stupid change could only come from Games Workshop. So for that reason, I think it's true.
I think I can echo that. Yeah, it is funny how the only change to skirmishers is something that makes it even more of a nightmare to play with than it already is. Yeah.
You're going to have to, okay, so now we get to a point. So I've got a unit of 100 men and one guy can just about see the target, then it can see them. Whereas if I have a unit of 5 skirmishers and I have 2 men blocking 3 men, then it can't charge because the majority of them can't see. That makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? That was a rhetorical question. Obviously stupid.
The skirmish rules are just BS anyway, aren't they? So...
Well, look, I think though there is a broader point here though with these changes. And I mean, so what they've done is they've also changed some points values as well. It's not like that they've just done a few sort of FAQs and said, oh, well, skirmishers all have to be able to get into the second rank or they die. These kind of indirect things they've done before. If these rumors are right, they've changed the points values of the Ogre Blade, Pegasus Knights, and the Royal Pegasus. And that establishes the principle that even though we've got printed books, we can change the points. That's never happened before in Warhammer Fantasy.
No, that's a 40k thing with was it the Field something Atorium, whatever it's called, and they regularly change the points in 40k.
Yeah, it is a bit worrying of the points changes because you think, well, how often will they update the points, right? I think so far there's been an FAQ roughly every 6 months or something. And so does that mean that the points are now going to change every 6 months? Because I don't really want that. I mean, once a year tops for me would be acceptable, I think.
This is where there's real diversity of opinion, I think, within the community about this. One set, and I think it depends how often you play. I think for the more occasional player, they want the points to stay the same because even if there's a year that passes between the games, they want their armies still to be the same. And there's something about having a book that's an authority, and that's the printed book. You invest in it; it's nicer on the bookshelf. Pegasus Knights cost what they cost in that book, and there's not. I don't have to stick post-it notes on it or something.
Yeah.
And then there are competitive players who play a lot of games who don't mind a patch every month, and then there are people in between that want it once a year or something.
Yeah.
So I probably fall into the first category because let's be honest, I don't play a lot. I spend most of my time writing lists or reading lore.
But do you write old world lists, Mark?
Not as much as 8th edition. It's just not as fun. But that's because I enjoy old world. But this event has just made me realise how much I much prefer 8th, and I will say that.
I think with list writing, though, if you know a game well, then you're able to think, what would this list do on the table?
All the nuances, isn't it?
Whereas in old world, you put a list together, you don't really know what it would do on the table unless you've played quite a lot of games.
Yeah, I still enjoy writing lists, but you're right on that one.
So with the patches, I just hope that they don't just only do whack-a-mole and just go and say, oh, Pegasus Knights need to go up in price. Sure, they probably do, but we need to change the points of quite a few other things as well. Needs to be holistic. No point just going and shooting one thing.
But I suppose I look at it from a point of view that if we look at 8th, there were some things which were just so overcosted. And I look at my beloved Beastman, and you just look at that book and just think that needed points updates. So I don't object to points updates periodically, but you wouldn't want it more than once a year.
Yeah, I think especially in 8th when we were using army books from other editions. I think they would have had the leverage then to be able to actually change the points. I think that would have been fine because clearly the
If
beast
they'd supported it.
and the Bretonians were too expensive, really, in those books for what they were. But maybe that principle, I don't think had been established then, because as far as I'm aware, when 8th Ed was live, even 40k didn't do points changes then. It just wasn't a thing they did. Whereas obviously now that's kind of culturally sort of acceptable. I don't know when it became culturally acceptable. The points change in any GW game.
Yeah, for me, it's just having these lovely hardback books, which I just don't want them to become obsolete. Like, I want them to be like the actual books that I can look at and use, like you said, without having to put loads of post-it notes on them. Yeah. But to be honest, I mean, the actual, we're talking about these FAQ changes, which obviously is the most sort of exciting part of it. But this match play guide might actually be more significant than the actual FAQs, right? Because if they
100%.
have missions, that could change the nature of the game in a way which doesn't make your rulebook obsolete and actually provides a role for other units which you're not currently using in the game. So that could be the best thing about all of it.
It could be. I mean, and we used in London Legends, of course, we had missions in all of our games, which were dependent upon unit fortitude, which are units with banners. So your monster can't score, your hero can't score, your fast cav can't score. And that principle, where you either have to hold the center, get into your opponent's deployment zone, hold different parts of the board, capture terrain features, all this jazz, completely changes the game. And put that in Old World and have it that the things that, you know, infantry and cavalry basically can score and monsters and dragons can't, then you will change the game. And also the mission change as well. Even if they hadn't done the match play pack, my impression was that politically players seemed to accept missions more than they did other kinds of changes, which I never really understood, because if you put missions in there, that does fundamentally change the game from a homebrew perspective. But no one ever seemed to mind that, whereas they got in a terrible fuss the moment you even said, oh, the Slan Mage Priest is allowed to go inside the Temple Guard. So apparently that was like, wash your mouth out with soap and water, but they were okay with missions. Anyway, but now they're going to do missions officially.
Well, the missions have been there for years in tournaments. Like, they've always been there. Like, a lot of the American ones always had that time after time. But this one, I mean, even if they put this match play guide, I'm not holding too much hope for it. It might have a few missions in there, but what's the rest of the book going to be? How to run a tournament, something like that? Because the similar one is the Blood Bowl one, which
who are they to tell the community that? I mean, it's just so ironic because the community ran tournaments and said things like, you're allowed the legacy factions. Surely, how to run a tournament. Rule number 1, only Games Workshop models are allowed. Rule number 2, legacy factions are not allowed. Rule number 3, no backsies. I mean, I don't know. Rule number 3, 1/3 sportsmanship, 1/3 painting, 1/3 game. I mean, what? I mean, they don't have good record on this, do they? I mean, they're not good at running tournaments.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you mean about that. But if they actually leaked, though. Sorry, not leaked, in that almanac thing.
Oh,
the contents page of that match play guide, right? And if you look at it, there's actually a sort of secondary objectives, or I forget what they call it, something like secondary objectives.
It'd be like capture the messenger, decapitate the king, or whatever it's called.
Well, that's the thing. What I'm concerned about is that those secondary objectives might be faction-specific objectives. And that might further drive a wedge between the 8 factions and the legacy factions. Because if they did like Bretonian objectives, Chaos objectives, and stuff like that, that could be an issue.
That is a really good point. Because isn't that the case in 40k? Do you get faction-specific objectives? Like the orcs have to do something to get.
Yeah, it could be.
I don't. Sorry, viewers, many of you will know this, but I do know that the secondary objectives in 40k are very controversial at the moment. But yeah, you could have faction-specific objectives. That's quite true. But I agree that in the same way as with these patches, these erratas, the legacy factions aren't being touched at all. If the missions are faction-specific, then that really drives a wedge, because then the fans are going to have to invent missions for the legacy factions or ban the legacy factions. I hope they don't do that, because that would be a really aggressive power push, right? By saying,
it would be a power push, but it might just mean that people just don't play any secondary objectives at all because they want to allow, Chaos Dwarves and Vampire Counts and everything.
If they force us to choose between playing the official missions and supporting the legacy factions, That would be, I think that would be very, very stupid because I think that a lot of people like the legacy factions more.
Of course. Yeah.
Because a faction is much more part of your identity than, you know, wanting to play that. I mean, also, as people have armies that they've spent years painting, that was their biggest error, I think, the legacy factions. I think that really left a sour taste in the mouth and made a lot of people who would have been quite loyal into rebels.
Yeah, yeah.
But on a plus side, they did release rules for them.
Yes.
You know, no matter how good some were or weren't, but they did release.
It's interesting that they even did.
Yeah, it makes you think that they were originally in there and then they got pulled.
Yeah, it makes you think that there's a political reason why they're not included rather than a artistic reason, right? And everybody knows, okay, you could make a case that Chaos Dwarves have never properly been a core faction, right? But Skaven were like one of the first army, but okay, there's the main five, right? So you got your Empire, Orcs and Goblins, Dwarves, High Elves, and Chaos, right?
Yeah.
And then it was Skaven. Skaven, they were the next one. That was the next book to be released back in 4th Ed. And Undead as well were one of the main factions, right? So obviously Vampire Counts is part of that. So Vampire Counts and
Skaven were in here.
Right,
That's
exactly.
Undead, so
exactly. No matter what anyone says, Skaven and Vampire Counts are core factions.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, with some of the others, as you say, Chaos Dwarves, the ogres, because ogres exist in mercenary form in other armies, they were added a little bit later. But Dark Elves are clearly a core faction, right? That's another one, indisputably.
Yeah.
I mean, that they're literally written on the founding rock as well. So
I mean, obviously everyone who plays them is just wrong. But you know,
from first principles. But so it is strange, and I don't know why they wouldn't at least do FAQs for the legacy factions. I mean, why would you release the legacy factions and then not do FAQs for them? I mean, what's the point of that? I don't know why, because none of the FAQs they've released apply to any of the legacy factions.
Right.
But they're just not. There's not a single question. There's no Q&A anywhere is to do with the legacy armies. I think that's right.
The legacy PDFs haven't been altered at all.
No. And none of the FAQs they put out are questions about the legacy PDFs. And that's not because the legacy rules are better written, that they're not, they're worse written, but they're not answering questions about them. I think that's right.
Yeah.
I'm very sure it's right. Because there's kind of a sort of, we won't touch them kind of attitude.
Yeah.
We gave you these PDFs, which you should be grateful for, and then we're not going to for example, do anything to the scream rule, for example, which is obviously in a different category of power to most other things in the game.
Anyway, so we're going to have to put a timestamp, aren't we, for people who want to skip straight to London Legends content?
Yes, exactly. For the London Legend people who don't want to, 8th Ed people who don't want to even hear about Old World.
But let's just try and just tie it into 8th Ed quickly, because what I was trying to say to people when we did that sort of promo video about the event was that these kind of balance issues that you've got in Old World have sort of already been ironed out for 8th Ed. And when we saw the armies over the weekend, 2 weekends ago now, it was a good sort of internal balance of troop types, right? You couldn't look at all the armies and say there's a cavalry meta or there's a monster meta or there's an infantry meta. It was a good mix of armies across the board. And for each faction, there were different ways of playing each faction, right? So you take, for example, Dark Elves. There was a fast cav Dark Elf army. There was an infantry Dark Elf army. There was a monster mash Dark Elf army. And all three of them did quite well.
And that's not even including a Witch Star Dark Elf army, which wasn't there, but could have been.
No, there was a Witch Star. There was a Witch Star.
Was there? Okay.
Yeah, so there were 4 Dark Elf armies, yeah.
Okay, so all of them different.
All of them different, yeah.
Yeah, and this isn't, I mean, Dark Elves perhaps are one of the more, because they're a very strong army, they're able to play the game a lot of ways. But this was true for even Bretonnians with less troop types. There are definite differences on how you can even have Bretonnians. MSU Bretonnians versus Long Lances. It's surprising how many different versions of each list there are. Because in Old World, if, for example, you're playing vampire counts, there are only, I don't know, 2 different builds really with that. And with some of the other armies, there's only one really. Whereas I say with 8th Ed, because it's so, I don't know, because the meta is so mature and it's so patched, there are so many different variations, even within each army. I have never had played a game of 8th Ed in all the time I've been playing that felt the same, ever. Whereas in Old World, that's not the case. I've had Old World games that felt very similar.
Chaos, the armies that you play specifically, Luke, every Chaos army I play is very, very similar.
Yes,
you've got the dragon, you've got the dragon ogres, you've got your you might have some knights, or you might have a giant chaos spawn, or you might have a second dragon, but it's very, very similar.
Yeah,
and all the Bretonian armies are very similar. It's like you're repeating the same game over and over again. Yeah,
the Exiles Bretonian army is, I would go as far as to say, identical. it is the same. It's 5 Pegasus Knights with the Zealot banner, 2 Bombards, 2 Barons, an Outcast Wizard, the Green Knight. And then there is a little bit of variation of whether you have Yeoman Guard as your core or whether you have... And the only difference is if you have Knights of the Realm, do you have three units of 6 or do you have 1 unit of 10 and 1 unit of 6? And so, this is like the level of variation that there is. It's not much.
I think it's worth pointing out, though, you are both talking about competitive lists.
Sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we were asserting it as
not the junk I field on the table when you play me.
No.
Yeah.
As I say, maybe that was maybe one of the built-in assumptions that people wouldn't dial into a competitive meta and would just play with whatever they had. But if they thought that, they were naive, because Old World has developed a kind of competitive meta, and that's where all of the sort of internet discourse is. So everyone is thinking about, do I have 4 Pegasus Knights or 5 in my Exiles list, as though that's kind of the only option.
But I'm still positive about Old World. These changes could make a big difference. And I still think that even though it kind of looks pretty repetitive and a bit boring at the moment, I think that it could easily get reinvigorated.
If given the match play pack and given that there are going to be some changes, even if these aren't the right ones, I think that has to be the conclusion, that the game is definitely going to get better. There's no question about it. And so I'm more positive about it than I was as a result of having seen that. I probably should have said that in my own little video about it. I do think it is quite meaningful, actually.
It is enjoyable, I have to say, as a game. It just needs some improvements.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
But, and as we've always said, 8th edition had some massive issues when it was first live, and it took a while to get up to speed.
Yeah, I think there are maybe in this patch of Old World, there are not going to be some changes to things like elite infantry, for example, and making them meaningful. We might have to wait for another change or do it ourselves. But anyway, yes, look, London Legends. This looks nice, doesn't it? This looks even nicer.
Yeah.
Magnificent sight. Not that Stormcast Eternal there. That's not a magnificent sight.
Lots of sweaty Warhammer players.
Oh my God, I was sweating there. I can tell you, against those 2 Mortis engines, bloomin' heck.
Yeah, no, it's good in Dark Sphere. Obviously, it's kind of you spend all day there underground, and obviously you can't see any windows, so you're sort of thinking like, I need to go up for some air. But it is a nice venue, man. It's like everyone is. It's kind of loud, but not too loud, in that you can't. You can play a game of Warhammer nice and easily, and you can just see across everyone playing games as far as you can see.
It's also not. Some Warhammer venues I've been in get seriously hot as well, and this one is not. I think it's okay. I haven't been on there on a very, very hot day, but some places, they can get a bit claustrophobic.
I mean, what I did notice when we were there playing is there's a definite hierarchy of geeks. Warhammer players are like at the top of the level, because if you looked at all the Magic the Gathering people on the other tables, you just think, we're a cut above you.
I think so.
Just to alienate anyone who plays that now.
Got some lovely pictures here. We've got here, you can see in the bottom right hand corner, we've got the Ramhotep 12 Snake Star. You
I've
don't
got
see
a
that
picture
every
of that
day.
coming up.
Which was conceived in the so-called raw dog days of competitive eighth, where there was no comp. That was a great story. Oh, and look at that. Thank you, Damon Burgess and the Burgess family once again for these beautiful trophies. The glass trophies, anyway.
While I think about it, let's give out a shout to was it trophydepot.com? That's his website.
Yeah.
Where you can get all of those.
Yes, and he didn't want a shout out, but we've given him one anyway.
And there is you might not be able to see it in the picture. There is an inscription on the axe, London Legends 2025, an engraving. Each year we've been giving away an axe. I haven't tried to chop wood with it, but it is a nice ceremonial trophy for your wall.
Oh, but it's not just one of these styrofoam LARP weapons, guys. This is a proper axe. You know, it's got a biting blade. You know, it's probably armor piercing. I mean, you know, it's all right.
Yeah. Next year, I'm gonna tie you to a board, Luke, spin it round, and start throwing the axe at you.
Oh, that would be the thing. Now we've got, and we had, needless to say, I mean, some very beautiful armies. And this is Reese's list, is that right?
Reese's Ogres,
which are currently on eBay.
Really?
Yep.
Really?
What is up with
this has happened. This has happened twice in London Legends. We had Lewis Flanders's Wall of Nurgle on eBay last time. Afterwards,
what is up with this? People selling armies. I've never sold any of my painted models ever.
No. So
there is not, I mean, that doesn't happen very often, you know. Well-painted armies don't often get sold. I've observed that. It's just unusual, mainly because I probably would buy some of them because I'm kind of quite time poor and I like the idea of having other, you know, doing other factions.
I particularly like this army because I'm not a massive fan of the GW aesthetic for the more modern ogres. I like the old 3rd edition ones, and that's why I really like this.
Well, they kind of went for that that sort of steppers kind of sort of Mongolia style kind of look, didn't they?
It's more the big stomach look I dislike more than anything.
Yeah, like with the belly plate. Yeah.
But just going back to the painted models thing, for me, once I've painted it, it's worth so much more to me now than it is to anyone else.
Of course.
And I just think, well, the price that I would be prepared to part with the models is more than anyone would be prepared to pay.
Yeah.
Exactly. I was almost thinking if someone kidnapped my army and I had to pay a ransom to get it back,
they could
the
have
amount I would
children.
pay would be vastly more than anyone else would pay for
it. Yeah.
because it's become as part of you, man. And I mean, it's not just that you painted it; if you gamed with it too.
Yeah.
This is Terra Eliel's Wood Elf army. He's also got these lovely objective counters as well in there. He's actually really stepped this up, actually, because some of the archers he painted when he was a kid, and the cavalry he has added. You can see the wild riders there trampling on some beastmen.
That's outrageous.
It is a bit. These ones at the front here. These are lovely models. These ones at the front.
They are nice.
These are metal, aren't they?
Yes, it's metal heads, I think, on plastic horses.
Yeah,
metal riders.
I think with Wood Elves, I like every generation of GW models with Wood Elves, which is quite unusual. Sometimes I don't like every edition, but even if I had the most modern Wood Elves, I still like them.
I do. The only exception is the god-awful 6th edition Treeman and Treekin. I cannot stand those. And I love Trish's work, but that is a complete miss for those.
Oh, are they the whippy willowy ones?
Yeah, they're just kind of sticks.
Oh,
it just felt lazy.
That's
my only dud in the entire range of Wood Elf stuff.
The other lovely thing with Wood Elves is you can also just mix and match models from different editions, and it doesn't matter. There's no scale change. They're all just, and that's a real appeal, I think, of Wood Elves. You can really mix and match. 2 units of Way Watchers here in Terra's list. Yeah,
he's done a fantastic job with the basing and, as you say, the wood and the objective markers.
Yeah, you've got to get into your basing to do this. This is a very tiny contingent of something very, very large. Alex Davis, which is what this army is, he's got 48,000 points of Skaven. And it literally, which includes, for example, I've seen it like 8 Hellpit Abominations in a drawer and this kind of thing. I mean, it's really incredible.
I think Alex had the worst luck of anybody who was playing that weekend. Like literally every time I went over to his table, I had to give him a hug of condolence because either his Grey Seer had gone down the hole, or his war machines had all misfired. It was like every time it was there, it was like a tale of woe.
I think if your wizard goes down the hole twice in a 5-game tournament, that's pretty bad.
And that's his. He brought that along for a best painted model, which we weren't doing a competition for.
This is
was that not part of the army?
I don't think so. No,
because I think it's a pox rat or something.
I thought he was just using it as a help it.
It could.
He might have done. I can't remember.
He's got some very strange models in here. They did all sorts of things.
What I do like is his Skaven slave unit has only like 5 Skaven in it, which is the whip ones, and then everything else is like humans, dwarves, undead. So it's a proper other race slaves.
Right, exactly. Because Skaven, because for some reason Skaven in their lore sort of enslave themselves, right, rather than others, which Chaos Dwarves do. There's no reason why they shouldn't enslave other armies. I really like aspects of the Alex army, the ones that are monopose. I have to say, I like it when you've got like a road of like 50 of the clan rats with just their sword. Yeah. I think there's something about monopose, which there's a certain sort of player who loves monopose. That kind of player really likes models from the old Battle Masters set where you had the most crude monopose. I once saw a guy that had just had an entire army of Empire that was just the monopose, and they were all the same. And there was something I think a bit almost, I don't know what it would be if you've got a certain kind of over focus kind of maybe sort of disorder or something that you just like painting the monopose every time. It looked great.
I think some armies look better monopose than others. The Empire looked very good monopose because you can imagine them all regimented units.
Yeah.
And the probably less good.
The 6th edition halberds were really good, which came in the box.
Yeah.
This is Alex Wheatley's
Empire. This is actually one of these armies where you need to spend a lot of time looking at it to really appreciate everything about it.
Honestly, I love this army. It's just so much really cool detail on it. Steam tanks like captured by the orcs going along. Even the little characters on the left where, one of them's got wings coming out of it. Obviously, that appeals to me because of my Doom Ball with this. I was going to say a similar conversion, but obviously not nearly as well done.
You see, this is an army which, to me, is the kind of thing you used to often see with Ninth Age armies, because Ninth Age armies didn't have the same, because they weren't GW lore exactly. You in a sense got less GW kind of sculpts, and I mean this one is because it's in a sense you wouldn't get orcs looting steam tanks in the old world, so this is a little bit. It's a little bit in a different place, I suppose, to what you would get with someone who was a GW fanboy. It reminds me a bit of the Ninth Age, or maybe actually a bit like the 80s, where you would just go off in a crazy direction and just go and say, I'm going to make whatever I like. I don't care about the lore, which is kind of cool in its way. What are these in Empire? Are these halberdiers or spearmen?
Yeah, I don't even know what everything represents.
I can't remember what he was.
This is where the objection kind of comes in. I mean, is it, as I say, I think it's cool, but at the same time, I wouldn't do it.
Same with me. Yeah, there's some wonderful conversions here. It's not the sort of thing that I would do, but
I'd prefer it if they were orcs, rather than Empire, I guess. But
so, what were the squigs?
What are the squigs?
Yeah,
a detachment, I think.
I should probably pull up his
handgunners. No, I don't know. I don't know what they're. I imagine that Alex probably uses them as orcs and goblins as well. I'm sure that must be one of the reasons. So you can get like a 2-for-1, which is a bit like Mike's army can be any kind of elf.
He had 48 halberdiers, 20 free company militia, 21 spearmen.
These are the free company, then.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. The very free company. They're very free. Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Oh, this is Bowden's army.
Odin's
Yes.
army.
Now these knights look as though they're very historical, right?
From Fireforge.
They're also, I think, 25mm knights. So they're a little bit smaller.
Oh, you think that? Oh, really?
I think so. They're quite little. I think they're quite
Well, you
small,
tell.
little men. They're quite small men.
Yeah.
So I use the Fireforge ones on my Britannians for the yeoman, and they work really well.
I think they're actually quite nice models. I think there's a lot of fluency to them because they've got all this flapping fabric.
I think they're the Knights Templar models or something like that from the range.
Yeah, I like this model. I mean, obviously it's not the best painting, but it's got character to it, and I just like how each unit is themed, and
Yeah.
they're just nice models.
It's got historic. I think it's also because it looks a bit more historical, doesn't it? And Bretonians are one of the armies that obviously can look very historical. There's
Yeah.
a little bit more fantasy in some of the ones here. There's got that knight there with wings and on his helmet. Um,
And he took questing knights. I mean, anybody who does that,
well,
deserves accolades because.
he also came fifth in our event, despite taking things like questing knights.
So I actually played him in one of the games, and it was a really good game, and he did really well. He played really well, and frankly deserved his position.
How did your game finish with Bowden?
16-4 to him, but we won't talk about that.
Did the questing knights do anything?
I actually don't remember at all.
If these are historical models, were lances really that long back in the day?
But lances were never used in war. They were only ever a tourney weapon. I think they may have been. I don't know I think the length of a lance is probably longer for a tournament lance. Is probably longer than the ones you see depicted in these models, as far as I'm aware. But as I say, these lances were never a weapon of war.
Right.
That's an abstraction. They look cool, but now this was an army that I wish I had mentioned on the best theme army in my announcement. This is Josh Meads' army, and as I say, I feel a little bit guilty that I did not mention this because I actually think this is a really, really cool army. It's first of all, it's very fluffy. And I speak as someone who played this army and was beaten by it, despite it being very fluffy. It's all Khorne, including like a Khorne giant and some things that are obviously not very meta-y. But this is really, it's also all 8th-ed as well. And so it's got a strong temporal coherency to it as well. There's some exalted heroes here as well. Like you've got that guy with the, that crazy kind of mask that looks like that dude from the, the Batman film.
Yeah.
Oh, Bane or something.
Bane?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love an all Khorne army. I've got my all Khorne army as well. But yeah, I love the theme. And the giant. I think I've got a picture of the giant in a minute.
This is the Halberd Warriors went and boxcar charged my trolls, and this demon prince Gorok ran into and failed to kill him with his breath of cheese.
Was that when he went straight down the hole, or was that a different game?
No, that was in the first game. No, I just ran into. I had to charge the demon prince. He gave me no choice, and then he fluffed his breath of cheese.
So I think Josh's first game, was against Lewis's Orc and Goblins. I think that was the first one, and that looked like a cracking game because every time I went to the table, something crazy had happened, and another unit had just been totally removed, and it was just swinging backwards and forwards. And they were both, I was going to say,
the Lewis army was. Yeah, so I cast Treason of Tzeentch. I played this army in one of the games. I was saying I cast Treason of Tzeentch on the Hell Cannon, which made it take its test on Leadership 4. Then it failed. Then it pivoted round and then rolled, I think, a 15 or something to get into my own troops, which I thought was quite funny. And that giant, my Spine Chaos Beast went into that with his loads of attacks and rerolls to hit, nearly killed the giant, and the giant got Yell and Brawl by rolling one and then broke the Spine Beast. This was our best painted winner, Adam Knight's High Elves.
Yeah, it's a lovely army.
It's I've always felt with it that it's better in the flesh than in photos. For some reason, I don't know why it is. Some armies look better in photos than in real life, and others it's the other way around. I feel with this in the flesh, it's even better than the photos.
New model syndrome for his dragon. Did absolutely nothing.
But
Yeah, look at
doing
the
the faces
detail
from
on
high
these
elves is
faces.
very difficult. High elves have very fine details on the faces, and he's done a fantastic job with it.
You also need, I think, with high elves, you need to do a good prime, and you need to keep the paint very thin and smooth. The
Mm.
smoothness is, I think, key here. Otherwise, it gets a bit bumpy. With other things like wood elves, it doesn't matter so much because you don't have so much in the way of these long cloaks. But you've got to make high elves do their ironing, guys.
Mm.
They need to look immaculate. Now, this photograph shows you the standard of painting, and this is even with the archers, which aren't as good as the character models, but this shows you some of the details there. And look at those, the cheekbones, the eyes are nicely done. Look at the shadows around the mask. I never liked these models very much, I have to say, because they've all got this weird uniform, kind of like 1920s flapper bob style haircut, which just looks really weird.
Yeah, I still like the monopose high elves from the fourth ed box set. I think they look great.
They're better. These
Yeah.
ones are just because as I never liked it because high elves have got this citizen levy thing, right? Where it says the elf is a musician or a painter in time of peace, but a deadly soldier in times of war. Whereas these look like these have been batched processed and they've all been given like this standard military haircut, which is, as I say, a really weird feminine haircut as well. So I think it's very strange. Anyway, never mind.
Unless Lewis is Orcs and Goblins.
Yeah. You got a massive unit of trolls. Was it like 12 trolls?
Yes.
Crazy.
Now he painted this, apparently, Lewis. This is a gorgeous army.
Yep.
And it's painted with great
look at that.
economy. It's painted by someone that knows how to paint. Let me put it like this. It's not because he's just spent ages loading it up. He knows exactly what to do.
Yeah.
And he's become, I think, a much better painter in that he's really learned how to do it. He was telling me that he had long conversations with Michael Duff, who won one of our best painteds before, and really got Michael to kind of critique his work and has really eaten the kind of the power beans and really leveled up. These really pop off the table as well. They're really very, very You really can see. I played this army. You can really see it coming.
He said he started painting it the day after the last London Legends and finished it basically the day before this one.
He was an absolute blast to play, Lewis, because he kind of got I don't know. He kind of had this kind of running commentary on what when I was moving my Great Chaos Spawn around. Oh, does he want it? Oh no, he doesn't. He's going. It was just great. It was just great. It was just.
He
lovely.
brought the orc persona with him.
Well, he did, and he's got, as I say, now my giant, whatever it was, giant beast thingamajiggy. Now it speaks with that Romford accent. It's got that now, which I just love it. God, leave it out, Gov. No, I'm not getting involved in this.
I don't know if you've got a close-up of his boar boys at all. Like the Savage Orcs on boys.
I don't think I do on the side here.
What I'm going to say, if you go... I don't know if you can go back to that one. But what I'm going to say about... next one.
Oh, this one here?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
What I'm going to say about these boars, and I'm going to put it in his head now because he's now not going to be able to unsee it. He's painted it a bit like GW, so the boars look like Alf. If you're of a certain 80s TV show era, that will be stuck in his head forever.
Yeah. No, this army is really, really beautiful. He had this, I think I can see why it created chaos because he had the 2 goblin blocks behind the trolls exactly 8 inches away. So all the fanatics would go through the trolls each time. So it was guaranteed total chaos.
He did he released, I think he had something like, oh god, how many 6 fanatics did that into like a unit of Phoenix Guard for I think it was it Christopher who was playing high elves with his really small units.
Yeah.
And he had something like 12 d6 of dice or something. and he only just managed to kill 15 Phoenix
Yeah.
cards.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
He had a big nightmare on, was it game 2 or something, where he was up against Owen's Empire with Elspeth and the death magic, right? And I sort of came up to the table sort of midway through his game, and he was like, "Oh, she dropped my leadership and panicked all my orcs off the board. And I lost my
Yep.
warboss and everything." I was like, "Yeah, but they're savage orcs. They're frenzied, right? They're immune to psych." And he looked at me like, oh my God, But they'd already done like a whole turn after that, and it was
Oh, I
too
know.
far to go back, and so needlessly lost his whole.
Needlessly lost them. One
Yeah.
other thing about the painting, guys, look at those spears. This is non-metallic metal, even on rank and file. And believe me, that looks absolutely superb. Especially, I mean, we zoomed out here, but if you step back, so they're artificially big, but if you step back a little distance, looks beautiful.
Yeah,
This is also a very special army here. Gnordum's Horde, Ian Andrews, a small part of a much larger Skaven army. Not as large as Alex's, but this is right out of, the Andy Chambers 1980s. It's got that drab color scheme that Skaven became a real signature for Skaven, where there looks like just a scurrying mass of them. They're really well painted as well, don't get me wrong, but there's a great uniformity, not uniformity, that's the wrong word, overall coherence to it. So that is beautiful.
There was, I mean, just on that, I think you've probably seen, I've forgotten what he's called. Is it Film Deg, whatever he's called? The chap who keeps interviewing all of the like the classic guys. He's literally in the last week or so released one with Andy Chambers and his original army, looking at that. And I think Andy Chambers was saying has always got to him about how many people love his army. And he said it's because he painted it so much differently from everybody else in that red period when everything else was popping colors. And then you have this.
Yeah, and it's interesting that because normally the people who are credited with the army's aesthetic are normally either miniature designers or are artists. And Andy Chambers is a good painter, but he's just a hobbyist painter. But he made that decision and it got photographed and it was influential because of that style choice. A piece of genius, really.
And
my word.
Just the scale of the army, like you take a big unit, you had 3 big units of Skaven slaves, right? Like this. And every model has been done individually, like it hasn't been batch painted.
Yeah.
And you just think, well, these are Skaven slaves. Like who takes the time to do every individual Skaven slave?
Well, it's a 30-year work of army. Yeah. I mean, he's got a video on YouTube where he tells the story about it, and it's that's why it's all. I've never seen, to be honest, and I say that literally, I have never seen such a characterful army there with the level of conversions and stuff all over the place. I mean, it looks like it took ages to paint, and it did. Mm-hmm. Like that every little thing was a project in itself. It looks like an army that was collected over decades, and it was.
And it must have been difficult just to have that many models and play 5 games over the weekend with that many models. And just
I mean, he was all right, actually. I was a bit concerned about that because, I mean, as I say, if he hadn't played a lot of tournaments and you've only got 2 hour 45 per round and you've got a huge army. But I mean, I played him and we got through all 6 turns. So.
Oh yeah, he knows what he's doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, absolutely. There's a Hieronymus Bosch banner there from the Garden of Earthly Delights. There on the right, a little bit of a callback there to when sometimes you had like an orc holding the Mona Lisa and that kind of thing. It's just there's one that's from the 5th Ed. That's from the 5th Ed Army book. One of the ones that you could print out.
Oh yeah.
The very strong glyphs there. He's got his own writing here as well. We shall eat the world, and with this way of writing in Skaven.
Yeah, and you look at each unit and you almost can't. Your eyes can't really focus on it properly because it's like it's all just camouflaged in itself,
Yeah, because you see the overall effect and then look at each model, and the other thing is with them is that the variety of sculpts that there were in this Jess Goodwin era, there were so many different Skaven that were produced. I mean, it's asking for someone to collect it over years and years and years, given the variety, and it has been.
It's my favorite Grey Seer kind of
with the orb, yeah,
yeah.
Lovely model that is.
It's the best. I agree. It's the best one.
Yeah.
In my opinion, without question. No, this has been the Skaven have always been an army that I would love to have, but I could never see myself having because of the extremity of painting it. This is Nikki's Dark Elves. We've got here. This is a Charybdis.
That's the Charybdis, yeah.
Now the Charybdis does come out of the sea, I believe.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
So that's not what it looks like in the lore, but it could be a Charybdis. Why not? I mean, I don't know how it lives on land.
I love this this kind of I'll call it a unit filler or
the Medusa and
the Medusa. It's brilliant.
It's a bit kind of BDSM-y, right? You've got the victim there, like fronted up before the pretty compromising position there before old
goes and
Snake Queen.
Nuts.
Yeah.
Oh, this is John's Orcs and Goblins. Yeah, I like this army. It's a little bit darker than the usual sort of very bright Orc and Goblins that you see, but it's well painted and it's got some nice old models in it.
It's well painted.
He was doing pretty well.
Orcs and Goblins have usually been always that they've been. Actually, there were periods where they were less bright, like in 6th edition, I think. Yeah. I mean, I always liked the bright look, but some very old models in here with some of the war machines.
Well, that was the Man Mangler before, wasn't it? The Kevin Adams one.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was when there were two different kinds of stone throwers, the Skull Crusher and the Man Mangler, lest we forget. Whoa, what's this? I didn't see this.
This is Adams' war altar.
Yeah, it's Adam's war altar.
Yeah. And that model there has got a real I love that model. I was definitely examining that because it just reminded me of was it Razorhead? What is it called? Hellraiser. It kind of gave me that vibe.
I like how the basing really looks like a waterlogged, muddy field.
Look at the wheels as well. They've kicked up. They've got all the mud on them. Yeah, that is nice. You're right. That is nice with the basing. Basing's an interesting one because it's an area that even if you're not a great painter, you might be able to make your basing look really good. And that's always how it's often been seen. Sometimes you'd have really good painters who wouldn't care much about the basing, and sometimes painters who were less good but who would really give the basing a real effort.
I really like
the basing. It's really nice.
Hanging out with the ogres.
Yeah, I really like the models to the left as well. I can't remember what he was using them as, but they're like
they were blood crushers, I think.
Hmm.
Yeah, you need blood crushers.
The process by which Adam creates his armies has always been a subject of great mystery to me because he's able to produce them very quickly. However, he denies ever having owned a 3D printer. So there we go. Oh, look, some Khorne Demons.
Yeah, so that's my game against Owen's Empire.
Yeah.
This was interesting.
How'd that go for you?
I won in the end. So if you look at the top of the picture there, he's got his block in the middle of I think it was spearmen, and he's got his two lines of handgunners.
Yeah.
There's two Hellblasters in front of the handgunners. There's a cannon and a steam tank in the middle of the board, and the demigryphs on the right hand side.
Yeah.
And basically, that steam tank and obviously the two Hellblasters either side of it created a big sort of kill zone in the middle of the board.
Yeah.
And so basically my blood crushers didn't move for the first two turns. They just stayed where they are. And obviously I maneuvered my cannons to try and take out his Hellblasters. And I ended up getting lucky with on I think turn 2, I ended up just shooting the steam tank, taking off a bunch of wounds, and then it misfired and ended up blowing itself up. And then once the steam tank was gone, I ended up advancing my big horde of bloodletters on the left of the screen here.
Yeah.
And then once I was in the back line, there isn't really much there to
Did your bloodletters fight the spearmen in the end?
Yeah, the bloodletters got right into the back line there. I ended up tying up the demigryphs with my blood crushers and hounds on the right hand side. We kept losing combat to those demigryphs, but we managed to tie them up.
So his army was really nice. What I really liked was it was a really dark themed empire, and he had obviously he had Elsbeth. He had for his
Who lives in Nuln, apparently.
yeah, she does. It's in Tamarkan.
Yeah, where she got her house, exactly.
Yeah. And he also had, is it the Ironsides? I think they're called, which is the Forge World kind of conversion kit, I'm going to call it, for the handgunners. So you've got half of the rank are kneeling down, which is brilliant.
And it does look nice.
And he was using the Dogs of War for the big block with the pikes.
That's what's it called?
Is it Leopold's?
No, it's not Leopold. It's the Fellowship.
Is it the other one?
It's the Fellowship.
Atlantean or something.
Fellowship? Al-Satiri. Like it's an Italian. It's a Italian regiment. The Fellowship.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks great. I feel with this army, it looks very almost end timesy in a way. It's got that grimness to it.
Yeah.
This is the kind of Empire army that would go and fight Archaon right before the world blew up. It's very dark and sinister. I also played Owen the night before, actually, round here. Owen is interesting because he started in 40k, then went to Old World, and then come to 8th edition. So it just goes to show, guys, it is possible to go on a strange journey.
Is that true? I didn't realize that he played Old World before 8th.
Yes, exactly, and now he still plays Old World, and I see him at Old World events. But I wouldn't want to put words in his mouth. But my understanding is that he prefers 8th edition.
Wow, I didn't realize. That's cool.
So it just goes to show you can go backwards. I mean, it's because there were still enough people at Cardiff in Firestorm who were playing 8th that he became curious about it, and went that way. And he's got like the Tamarkan book and stuff, and so it is interesting because, as I say, he's quite a young guy, and so he's taken an unusual route there, deliberately getting into a game before his time, and I think that's pretty cool.
But I wouldn't have guessed that at all because, like you say, he's got the Tamarkan book and obviously the basing element of it as well. If people start on Old World, they've normally got everything on big bases,
right? Exactly. You wouldn't think that, would he? And so he must have. I didn't ask him whether he'd rebased the army, but I don't think he has.
Yeah.
So this is Giles's dwarves, who is someone's brother.
Yeah, it's
James's brother.
James's brother, yeah.
Yeah.
The army's quite nice. I mean, I think he can spend a bit more time to sort of finish some of the details, but
because he had the interesting lord on shield bearers who had the 3 runes of iron, I think it is. So he ended up with like the regen save off the back of it, which is quite unusual.
Oh, was it?
And that's what I was like when I was watching the video, going, "Why was I ill and I couldn't join you for the list reviews?" And I was going, and you were like, "I can't remember what that does." And I'm going, "It's a regen."
There you go. We didn't know.
But I suppose that's because I checked all the lists, so I was much more au fait with them.
This is Mike Sylvester's Dark Elves.
I still really like his army. I think it's really good.
It is good. It's one that I think it looks better in real life than in photographs. I mean, and Mike wouldn't mind me saying this. He painted it very much as an army to be looked at from a certain distance.
Yeah.
Which is fine because you are. I mean, only very artificially do people like go up really close and stuff. But most of the time when you're looking at an army, you are looking at it from, 3 or 4 feet away.
Yeah. And it's worth mentioning that Mike was our previous winner and didn't do quite as well this time.
Mike had a bit of a miserable time of things at London Legend. I don't think he had some pretty bad luck, especially in his last game. He was, even though he didn't do well, he was. I mean, I think he was doing very well. He was up there, yeah.
He was up there
for disaster,
and then the last game just went badly.
I think he had some. I can't remember exactly what the story was in the last game, but I think he failed. It may have been a 10 with a reroll or something.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, and a 10 with a reroll. I mean, that is something you may only fail a couple of times ever, really, when it matters, because it's so unlikely. 9 with a reroll, sure, but not 10 with a reroll.
Yeah.
It's very, very hard to do that.
It's
These are the Nurgle ogres for James Wrightson.
I'm actually just gonna just I know we'll probably talk about lists and stuff a bit later, but I think I've got a feeling, and I need to just double check it, but I have a feeling that this is one of the closest of the 3 that we've had in terms of people's scores at the top, and probably the spread. I think before we've had a bit of a runaways before, but not so much this time.
I think the top 3 were separated by a bit, but the actual 3 themselves was only like 1 or 1 point or something.
It's only like 5 points down to the next one. It wasn't big at all.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh no, definitely. Well, we can talk about that. This is Mamboy's Raw Dog Tomb Kings. Literally, They were dusted down apparently from. So the amusing thing with this, dear viewers, is that this list contains a Rumhotep, which means that all of these snakes reroll their armor save.
Yeah, 3 up rerollable.
Yes.
And there's 12 of them.
I don't think they had the Entombed Beneath the Sands rule, right? Because that would be hilarious with that unit.
But I think every time I saw him play it, that unit didn't do very well.
Well, it's a bit vulnerable to chaff, right?
Looks beautiful though.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's one of these. Maybe that's the kind of unit in the old days of 8th when everyone was running Death Stars. Maybe this is the kind of thing you put in there to fight an enemy Death Star. Maybe.
I didn't really get many pictures of Jim's army actually.
Yeah, so this was my
army,
my game against Jim, which I would have. So if I was playing very competitively, I would have played it differently on hindsight because the 2 Mortis engines were different to what I expected them to. This army tended to bunker up. Yeah,
Jim's army reminds me of your Bretonians, Luke. By that I mean he's got some really nice unit fillers in his.
Yes.
Which just made me think of your yeoman.
That's true. Yes, and those yeomen have not been seen on the table very often. And also, Mark, you're quite astute because he's actually got the same plastic models that are the unit fillers. Like he's got that well there, and those are the same ones as on my yeoman. So I'm sure that's why
that would be why
that.
then. Yeah.
There is also like there's like a kind of a wooden car or something in there. So yeah, he went shopping at the same 3D printer place.
But it's quite colourful for a Vampire Count's army.
Yeah, and Undead had that colourful history from 4th Ed. There was this whole kind of point about that the sort of Gothic clothing principle of some very sickly saturated colours alongside black, which they used to do.
Harry's Chaos Dwarves, which I think they were another army that is kind of quite dark, and you need to look at it quite closely to pick out the details on there. But it was quite cool, I think.
Yeah, this is the Bale Taurus
flame cannon
with the very similar basing to Adam's army. I wonder if they are. I wonder if they were done together.
With a kind of ogre slave in the middle of the Chaos Dwarf unit there.
Yeah, there's a lot going on there from a modelling perspective, isn't there?
Yeah.
Harry had a really up and down tournament. Like he was either winning big or losing horribly. I think he jumped around quite a bit on the tables.
An ominous roll of thunder there.
Oh, did you just get that as well? I've just had all the lightning and thunder
we're all in
as well.
London, so we probably did. Oh, this is my Cockney Great Spine Chaos Beast. Oh, all right, Governor, come off it. Yeah, exactly.
I think Golrog's trodden on him. He's looking a little flat.
Maybe. Oh, happy days. Yeah. Yes, Gorok had to go back to Gorok got a bit injured in this event, so he had to go back to my table and get a bit of a repair.
A bit of TLC.
Yeah, because this kind of model, man, I mean, it's not designed to be transported everywhere. And I've used this model a lot now over the years.
Yeah, so this is the last army I've got here now. This is
The
George's
George's.
threats.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's a lovely army, this one
This
as
is
well.
very nice. I wish I'd
Mm.
taken the time to look at this a little bit more. It looks very
It
pleasing.
it was lovely on the table to see it as well.
Yeah, a little bit, all a little bit. It's all it's a very this is a very sick-fed Bretonian army.
Mm.
I think it's all sick-fed. It's very fairy tale. Um, yeah, some of the sick-fed sculpts are a little bit more ostentatious. And they are no, they're very beautiful. Some of the sick-fed ones, they sometimes did some knights with bare heads as well, a little bit more, which is nice to see. The mounted yeomen, such ubiquitous models, have come back now for the old world. Never been bettered, even after all this time. Freehanding there on those little lions on the shields as well, not transfers.
Guys, I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Just gonna go to the bathroom.
Yeah, well, we can talk. Well, you can edit this out. We talk more about yeomen.
See, I don't mind these. I mean, I know some people really dislike these yeomen. I don't mind them, but I do. I've got the Fireforge models which I use instead of these, and I just think they're just really nice
The
models.
yeomen, these ones are very, very historical. Like with some of the Perry Bretonians, I think some of them were 80s ones that were, I think, created. I'm not quite sure that they were re-released in the 90s. And there are some, like even some of the Men at Arms, for example, there are some more limited edition sculpts in there that are some variations. And there's this weird intersection with historicals with some of the Perry stuff, especially with some of the peasants. And yeah, and you can get some of those still from what's it called?
Foundry.
Boundary,
Yeah.
exactly. Like some of the old archers, and things.
Yeah, you can get quite. I mean, because I think Ansel basically took all of the old range with him, didn't he, when he left and went, "That's all mine."
Yeah.
Start from scratch.
Yeah, exactly. And there were some peasants that the Perrys were able to just get hold to reproduce themselves, and you could still get 80 sculpts a long time later.
And the Perrys just wanted to do historics anyway, which is why they ended up doing all of those.
Exactly, and that was something that was still there in GW in the 90s. People who'd come primarily from historicals, Priestley and Stillman were like that as well, in the way they thought.
Right, I'm going to grab another drink, I think. I'll be back in 2 secs.
Okay.
Righty. So I was going to talk about a few lists, if you're happy to do that.
Fine, let's go.
Because we talked about the list, obviously, before the event, but I think given that we now know which ones performed very, very well.
Yeah, so Bowden here came fifth. Now, this was really one of the nice stories, I think, of the event, because as far as I'm aware, Bowden doesn't play a great deal and had come to our 2 previous London Legends and had been quite far down the tab and managed to come fifth in this event with a Bretonian list that I did not think was at all optimal.
Yeah, so I think Bowden does play quite a bit, but he's just a fluff player.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, and you can learn from playing fluff, of course. Yeah. But usually
he knows the game.
Yeah, usually players who play fluff, they don't do as well competitively for several reasons. First is because they might not. Yeah, the competitive situations, they may not see them as often. And secondly, also, maybe this is less true in 8, that I think this is true in 6th and Old World. No. I think players who are competitive can be a bit more assertive and get what they want. I think in 8th, because the rules work better, I don't think that works as well. So I think usually the better player tends to win.
So I'm going to slightly I'm going to interject a little bit of here that he isn't as big a fluff player as you think. Okay. So I played him in the first game I played when we were sharing games, and we were just having a chat about his list. And I think there's 2 key bits to his list. Is one, the Book of Asher, so he's casting everything on a +5.
Yeah.
And the fact he's got Beasts, which is there to basically buff the hell out of everything nearby.
Yeah.
And
he's effectively casting on a +6, isn't he? Because beast magic on the
on
mounted.
Bretonians, so he gets -1 or whatever to casting. So it's
that is actually important, because when you think about it, Wissen's on 2 dice with the level 4, with the Book of Asher, and on horses. You're only going to need to get 4 to get that on the dice.
Yeah.
And that's 4 is reliable. 6 is not.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be 3 dicing Wissens. So I can see why Book of Asher with beasts.
Yeah. So I think it was
good.
quite a well thought out list, to be fair, especially when you've got like some of the items he's got on his Lord and the Paladin, where I think he auto hits, he re-rolls his ones or something like that. I can't remember what the Caress does.
For me, it re-rolls 1 to wound. I'm surprised he has the Impetuous Knight on his Lord. I mean, because you put a virtue on your Lord that allows him to kill things like Knightly Temper or Heroism. Impetuous Knight just buffs a unit, so you put it on a Paladin normally. But he said to me that people made mistakes against the Impetuous Knight virtue. And that's weird, because these are open lists. Yeah. So you shouldn't. Impetuous Knight is the ultimate gotcha.
Yeah.
But with open lists, it's not.
Yeah. But it's still even if people know about it, it just guarantees his charge one way or another.
Also, I think if people know about it, they are more paranoid about it. So there are some advantages to the enemy knowing it's there sometimes. Because obviously, if they don't know it's there and you wheel out the gotcha and then you fail your charge, then it doesn't work. What else has he got here? I'm struggling to understand how. When I say this did well, I mean, I'm divorcing the list from the player. Maybe he just played very well with it, or was very lucky, or both. I don't know.
So Mark, was his Lord with the Grail Knights and the Banner of Swiftness?
Oh God, this is 2 weeks ago. A lot's happened since then.
What do you mean nothing's happened since then? Nothing, Mark, that's as important, surely, of knowing whether Bowden's General was with the Grail Knights.
I don't.
Does his General have the Grail Vow?
Yes.
That might tell us. All right. Well, in which case he was then. Because why would you put Grail Vow dude in the Knights of the Realm? You could, but it would be pointless.
And this guy's got Grail Vow as well, the BSB.
All right. So they all went in there.
Yeah.
They all went in there, and the Impetuous Grail Knight unit ran across the board.
And he looked to do the +3 strength, +3 attack thing as well. So it's just putting out an absolute metric ton of high strength.
Yes.
Kills,
look, if you ran into that and did the big savage beast and you got it, you'll kill anybody. That's definitely true.
Yeah, and that's kind of a lot of what this list relied on, I think.
The main threat does definitely seem to just be the Grail Knights, because 9 Knights of the Realm, 9 Knights Errant, 4 Pegasus Knights and some Questing Knights. It's the Grail Knights, man.
Yeah.
They're where it's at.
Yeah. That was good.
Yeah. So he had a big plus on there, and as I say, did very well. I mean, I think with Bretonians, I've always thought with them that where they do well is against sensible opposition. Where Bretonians struggle is when you start getting into -5, -6 Dark Elf Chaos, then it starts to get a bit silly and you can't compete. But when it's not super cheese, I think they can be very competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say his Trebuchet won up to my Cygor, but that's not really surprising.
Yeah, he's only got 1 Treb in this as well.
Well, he's a Highlander, isn't he? How often do you see Highlander breaths?
Not often, because you have to dump the second Treb.
Or take
also, think about it. You have to have. Bretonians don't have many unit choices. It's very, and they have and they have good core units. So it's quite hard to have 1 Paladin or 1 Knight Errant or 1 Trebuchet. It's difficult to do.
No Green Knight.
Yeah, well, that's not so surprising, but it's Nikki now. This was really cool to see, because Nikki and James Wrightson, both very good players, but not from the jabroni generals, so to speak. And they were on table 1 in the last game, which was a wonderful thing. So also 2 of the nicest people and players you could ever wish to meet as well. Now, this, of course, we discussed in the video before, the
We
double
did.
Supreme Sorceress. We tipped this one. We thought this might do well.
Mhm.
And I think the two sorceresses with dark magic and death,
Yeah.
the two dark sisters, whoa, I think they're quite synergistic, actually.
Yeah. The Dark Sisters. Obviously, the meat of the armies down here with the monsters.
Yeah, you see, this was designed for Cardiff, where they let the monsters score, where this was great. But Nikki still went and took this here. It's the core. I mean, the bleak swords aren't much, but as I say, it's all of these monsters and the two sorceresses.
Master with the cloak of Twilight is always handy as well.
Yeah, that's more meta-y. I know that in her last game against James, where she was on table 1, and I think what happened here, she got the death wizard to do a massive purple sun on James's trolls. James lost almost the whole unit and Skylar. James put Skylar in the unit for the magic res, which was our comp thing, but it didn't. He just rolled badly.
Yeah.
His demon prince then went down a hole. So James had lost almost half his army almost immediately. And then something happened. James was able to win the objective and somehow secure a draw. My impression was that I think James managed to do very well after a terrible start. And it was a standoff there on table 1.
I think James said it was actually, I think there was a bit of a mistake and it finished 11-9 to Nikki.
Okay.
But it obviously didn't change
No, it didn't change. It didn't change the overall result. It also, I didn't hear about it from Nikki's perspective, but I did hear about it from James's. James almost said, in a manner of speaking, that this game aged me several years, and he was huffing and puffing a bit afterwards, and he felt like a man caught between two stools. One was really loving this experience, but the other was almost exhausted, like butter being scraped over too much bread, which was like, Bilbo with the ring and everything.
But there is that feeling, isn't it? When you're at a 5-game tournament, a lot of the time you kind of know by game 5 whether you've got a chance of winning or not. And if you don't, game 5 is a really relaxed experience.
Yes.
For the weekend, and you just want to have some fun for the final game. But if you know you're in a chance of winning, all of a sudden it's like pressure and stress.
If you're on table 1, you do.
Yeah.
Because you know that, this might be your chance to win a tournament, and it might be the only time you've got one. Oh, yeah. It's a serious place table one.
We should talk about, so overall, people, I think, liked the small changes to the missions that we made, particularly having like the first mission being the one where you kill enemy units to capture the flag. So it wasn't like a territorial-based objective. And mission 5 was the kind of center of the table, sort of meet in the middle clash. But a number of people didn't play mission 5 correctly, and actually table 1 didn't play it correctly, which was that you're supposed to count the scoring every turn after the first. And quite a few people were playing it just as a end of the game objective.
I've seen it played like that in other events in a weird way, and we wouldn't sanction this, dear viewers. If both players are doing the same thing, it probably doesn't matter that much. But you should still play it how it is in the pack.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
I would say that I also played it wrong. And it was my idea to put that as the last thing.
So did I, Mark. I played it wrong too. There you go. Disarray amongst the organizers. We played our own mission wrong.
But it does make a difference because it means that you've got to clash in the middle
I think it's better counting, to be honest. But I still think at the end is okay as well.
Yeah,
The aim of that was, though, so that we had the final mission was there was no way someone could draw it. It was almost had to get that objective.
You couldn't run away.
Not run away.
Yes.
The final mission.
Yes.
It was kind of a do or die.
Right. Okay. So we didn't want discouraging of turtling on game 5. Yep. So that was Nikki. Then we've got James Wrightson, who we were just talking about. Meta Demon Prince.
You've been through this before. Yeah.
He did the work, except in the last game where he blew up, stopped his opponent moving around with his Slanesh magic. I mean, this list, as I say, is very like the one that I have historically run, and I obviously ran a similar list in this event and did actually really badly. So
you were really put out by that.
I got kind of pasted in this, and God knows what was happening. I was in complete. Me and Mike were both blooming in disarray by the end. God knows, it was the game suddenly. Also, by the last game, this is just an observation on the psychology of this. I'm a very experienced player, but by the last game, I was making mistakes that I wouldn't normally make because I was just assuming everything was going to go wrong. So it just goes to show it's a bit like that. It's like, tennis or something, when your confidence is gone, you just start playing badly.
That's why so many professional athletes have, or, sportsmen have the psychological coaches almost, isn't it?
I got the yips. That's what I'm going to call it. Yeah, that's what exactly.
But I always found that playing dwarfs, because you start taking the opponent's models off from turn one, often when the clock's ticking, they start making mistakes because they know they're behind and need to catch up. And actually, my army, they could still win the game in the later turns if they're patient and they play it right. But quite often, as they're losing models early on, they end up making mistakes.
I think there's also a factor. It depends what the time limit's like. If it's a time limit where you've got a short round and you get 4 games, then the shooty army, shooty army is, because if you don't think maybe you'll get the turn 5 or you won't, then it's.
But in 8th edition, there's long charge distances in 8th anyway. I rarely found that armies won't be able to. A combat army will always get a chance to
turn 3 is where the shit tends to hit the fan.
Yeah.
And as I say, if you and turn 4, definitely. So we've got Throg and we've got Skylar. It's special characters here. The Chaos Warriors with Slanesh apparently put some work in for him. I was a bit skeptical about them, but apparently they did quite well, according to what James told me.
He's got 9 trolls, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's obviously a great unit with Throg. I mean it's the ogres again. They're something that I've run in recent years and have tended to do quite well. I think it's this Chaos army is an artifact of comp because the meta Chaos list is super comped. Double Chimera, Demon Prince, 3-up rolling 1 disc. Rightly, it's heavily comped. You end up seeing Chaos lists that are a bit like this, I think.
Yeah, and for that reason, we've only done a +1 Highlander, haven't we? Because
it's easy to get Highlander and Chaos.
Yeah.
Because there are so many good choices, you can get Highlander quite easily.
Have you ever been to an event that limits only 1 special character?
I have never seen special characters ever limited in 8th.
Yeah.
It's a cultural thing about 8th. Special characters are just in 8th, whereas in other editions, it would be quite normal to just say, if we don't say it, you can't use special characters.
Yeah.
But I think some of that is a throwback to, well, I say 7th edition. Some of them were just awful, weren't they? Teclis was just absolutely broken.
Was he worse in 7th ed than he is in 8th ed?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, if I remember correctly, he was appalling and probably single-handedly made everybody not take him.
The thing is, I've never played 7th edition.
7th.
I hear all these terrible stories about utter excess.
No, so 7th edition is basically 6.5, so it's got lots of quality of life things. It's just a couple of the books were not very good.
Nobody plays 7th anymore, though, do they?
Some people say 7th core rules with 6th ed books.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
But you're right. No one plays with the 7th ed armies.
Yeah.
There's no support for that now, weirdly. So that is interesting. That's, as I say, you'd need to go into a time tunnel to go and play 7th edition. So I wasn't playing the game then, and no one plays it now. So who knows what happened?
But it couldn't have lasted that long, though, because they'd done all these 8th ed books before they'd even updated Beastmen and Bretonnians to 7th ed, right?
Well, they never bothered. I think they just didn't care about some. I
think
7th ed lasted.
Oh, Beastmen was 7th. Wasn't there 2 6th ed ones? Or
no, it was just Bretonnians.
Okay.
So you had Skaven and Beastmen were 7th books.
Right.
Yeah, Bretonnians were the only one that didn't get 7th either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good list. James is one. I'm not surprised it did well. We thought it would do well, and it did.
Yeah.
Nav, my regular opponent, I played him. Actually, he's got the bug back for 8th ed. Now because of this event, I played this. I played this list now. He's got another variation where he's got 2 wyverns from the Storm of Magic and the 2 wyvern bosses. So he's got 4 wyverns now.
But for me,
yeah.
It was really nice to finally meet him in the flesh. It's the first time I've actually finally met him.
You've heard all of you heard in the pub all of the trash talk as well. Nav is the master of trash talk.
Precedes him.
It all comes out of wrestling, that's the thing. Yep. So he's got this. He hasn't got 4 wyverns in this list. He's only got 2, and I think they did well. So one thing he said was that, for example, against Jim Allen's list with the Mortis engines, the wyverns, while they're not very good, they have a small base size and they can pop in and they can place in places that are quite small. And so your opponent can sometimes make mistakes against them and they can jump behind him.
Yeah.
And that's all because they've got this 50 by 50 base.
Yeah.
Which is an underrated aspect of them.
I'm surprised we allowed them to have a 50 by 50 base.
I think they're meant to, right?
Well, because they're still monsters. I think
but the Bloodthirst is the same. The original Bloodthirst always had all the greater demons had a 50 by 50, right?
Well, the original Wood Elf Dragon came on a 50 by 50.
Yeah.
Came on a 40 by 40.
Oh, was it 40?
Going back in the day, even Egrin Van Horseman had the 40 by 40 base.
But I think
it's 50. It's 50.
I think it was 40. I don't think they had a 50.
No, you might be right, Luke.
No.
But I think maybe that's something we should
I think it was 50.
Think about.
I think it was 40.
Do you?
Yes, I do. Yeah, because the 50 didn't exist.
Yeah.
I
think you're right, to be fair. I think
I'm not 100% sure, but it looked very silly on its base and it nearly fell off and it kept falling over in the battle.
Oh, some of the big dragons look silly on that. Yeah.
Anyway, so this list, look, it's got a big poison block, and it's got it's got the Savage Orc Shaman with the Lucky Shrunken Head, a level 2 Goblin Shaman. He doesn't have to get the poison spell. He can. But the thing with the Savages, the 37 Savages, is that they stand in the center and they shoot with poison. And the Arachnaroks and the Wyverns go on the side and they run round you. And it's a surprisingly effective combination. The Arachnaroks can just go over terrain as well. Yeah. And so there's a lot of stuff on the side. And then if you push forward towards the Savages, they are very good in combat. And some of the Orc spells are quite buffy as well. And it's plus 10.
Yeah, because it's got no level 4, right? So it's just the 2 level 2s.
Yeah.
I'm going to say now, expect any cheap +1 models to be gone next year.
It's good for plus 10, without question. Because the thing is, Orc gun lines became so meta-y that we now give them a big plus for no war machines. If you can make a no war machine Orc list, you're going to get a good plus.
Yeah. But look, I mean, he's got 20 goblins for the +1. I still think that deserves a +1.
Also, it's only got 2 scoring as well. The 10 Spider Riders are not. I think he misunderstood the scoring rules there. That's not optimal. You would have 2 units of 5, right? If you were going to use them as chaff.
It's +10, but you played really well with it.
Oh yeah, I mean, look, Nav is a very experienced player. He's the most aggressive player I think I've probably ever seen, in that he plays very fast and is very aggressive, and there is a little bit of a shit or bust element to the way he plays, but he doesn't care if he just loses. This is why he wins a lot of events, because he does go all in. Is not at all a conservative player.
My kind of player, then.
Yeah. Oh wow, he plays by. He's quite instinctive. It's interesting. He doesn't work out, I'm going to get this many hits and this many wounds. It's just right, charge.
But it's the +10 that got him the second place, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And there we have our champion. Nice to see Adam. Adam often up there in events. Very, very good player. This time was
came 3rd in our first one, maybe.
Oh, he always does well. But there were some things in here, and on the list review, I didn't understand Adam's lists.
Yeah.
Now his Lord.
So the
has
pendant, the pendant means that when you take a break test, you take one less dice than normal. And for each unsaved wound, the bearer gains +1 attack for the rest of the bearer.
It's the
battle.
first thing that matters, right? It's a different kind of crown of command. So your Lord, if he's got 9 leadership 9, he can't break unless he loses combat by 3, because the most you can roll on one dice is 6.
It's a 6. Yeah.
So there's something obviously a lot. I mean, that is good, but at the same time, it doesn't seem that good. But obviously, it was.
Yeah.
A metal wizard on War Shrine. Again, it doesn't seem good. I mean, it's +8 list.
Yeah, I mean, it gave him at least +1, if not +2 for that. I can't remember.
Yeah. There's a lot of plus. And as I say, I think he must have played for the objectives. And yeah, but he was a couple of points clear there at the top. 2 units of 5 Hellstriders. I like that. But yeah, I think he said the Lord was the thing that really did it for him. When I asked him about why, he said it was this Lord with his Slanesh thingy jiggies.
Yep.
So what, a 1-up save or something? What
he's got a 1-up save, and he's got he's 1-up save, 4-up ward,
right,
and he's got the Soul Feeder, which means he regains wounds.
Right. And you have to pass a leadership test to attack him.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So which is the other Slanesh, the pendant or the allure? Yeah.
Yes. He also vanguards as well. Yeah, it's good, the Steed of Slanesh. I'm still surprised. I think I'd need to play it myself, to be honest, to try and understand why it was strong.
Well, to be honest, they didn't think it was strong. So apparently this list originally had a Warp Fire Dragon in it until we banned that from our comp. So he'd been basing it on that. So when they came in, they were all convinced that this list actually wasn't that strong at all.
Adam didn't think, in the Jabroni General chat group, this exclusive club of which I am an honorary member, Adam was not very optimistic going into this event. He was saying, there are a lot of good players here, a lot of good lists. If I get in the top 10, I'll be happy. So, he did better than he expected.
And I think the top 3 are all plus lists, right?
They are. They are.
+10, +1. And that's 0, and that's +8. So look, there's no minus lists in the top 5.
Interesting. That might be something we might want to look at in future tournaments. So one thing I know that Jim Allen's event, which is the Squig Hopper GT in Holmfirth in Yorkshire at the end of July, he has it so that all of the army list submissions have to be between -1 and +3. So he's really
a Swedish comp style, isn't it?
Yes, he's using tally comp like Swedish was sometimes used, which is interesting because it does mean that there won't be so many mismatches. It's an interesting. I wouldn't say I'll be all in for that, but I think it is an interesting decision to do for sure.
Worth also mentioning that James, obviously, who came third, won the best general. We didn't actually give a prize for it, but he actually got the most points.
Yes,
for the games.
Yeah, and even with the +1, he was still being he was, other players were getting bigger pluses than him. It is interesting that and this is in an event, viewers, where we took away a lot of the pluses.
Yeah,
we tried to.
Just to also clarify, Nicky was on a 0 rather than a plus.
Yeah, it's on there.
Yeah.
But I remember when talked to the Triple Crown guys years ago, and they used to say the sweet spot is about -5. So obviously the way these comps have evolved, or the way players have evolved, I'm not sure that's true anymore. I think a few events have been won by stuff that's had pluses, and sometimes reasonably large pluses, actually. Not the +23 list, but won a Cardiff event where they allowed pluses of more than 10. That was a bit controversial.
That wasn't it?
Yeah. The guy broke the comp. I think he only won 3 games as well. That was the thing.
He's
Yeah,
very
that's
he's very
that's not
good with
quite
that
on, is
though,
it? Yeah.
because he's one of Mark Finley's kind of associates, I'm going to say, because he appears on his podcast
Steve Dave
occasionally.
Trigg, yeah.
Yeah, and he always is very good at breaking comp, from what I've seen.
The comp breaker.
Yeah,
It's like the breaker of chains, the breaker of comp.
Yeah, because if you can win the tournament without getting on the top tables, then you're not really playing the other top players at the event, are you? Yeah.
Yeah. Also, you're not, because the plus or the minus is added at the end. You won't face the. You might not face the filth.
Yeah.
You might be able to duck around it, and then be lifted up. So there is definitely, I think, a feeling that too high a plus is too big a crutch, and you don't have to face the final boss, so to speak. And that's something that feels as though you need to beat the final boss to win.
And I think that was what was so good about our final game here, where you had Nicky and James both on the top table, and it was, it was in their hands to do what it was. And then the 10-10, when it came back, it was
reason,
like, oh.
The thing is that the reason we were thinking this is because we have a group of players called the Jabroni Generals who come to our events and are very strong players. And Nicky and James, while both competitive players, strong players, obviously aren't part of that little clique. And so in a sense, I kind of wanted one of them to win.
Yeah.
But they obviously just had a really good game and were too evenly matched, and ended up sharing the points, allowing one of the Jabronis, Adam, to leapfrog them.
Yeah.
And Adam sort of got lucky, or Mike got unlucky on table 3 there, and obviously Adam got a big 20-0.
Yeah, and one, I think, to be honest, that looking at those two lists, Mike's versus Adam's there, I think that's very loaded in favor of Mike, and so I think it was a bit of good luck at the right moment there. Yeah. As I say, I think the firing squad's weapons all exploded in their hands there and killed them all.
They were both playing very conservatively, very tentatively on that last game. They both knew how many points they needed to. It was a very cagey game at the end.
Yeah, and then Mike obviously failed his silly leadership test, and then it ended up just being a 20. So just goes to show, you can be like a bank manager, but past performance is no guarantee of future success, and crazy things can happen in the market, and you can lose everything.
Yeah.
And I suppose the other person I think I want to shout out who was doing really well, and then just also kind of dropped off just at the end, was John with the Orcs and Goblins. So he was up at the top tables. He had a minus list as well.
Yeah,
for a lot of it, wasn't it? And it was just at the end. I think it was his last game that it just.
What did he play in his last game?
He was playing Nav. Nav got 15-5 against him, and it just dropped him down the leaderboard.
That's interesting. As I say, again, from experience of playing Nav, as I say, he once he gets on top of you, man, as I say, you can get taken off quite quickly. But that
John was table 4, table 2, and table 2 for the last 3 rounds, so he was doing really well.
He also played Mike as well, and was able to beat. I mean, we thought that would be one of the lists Mike struggle with a little bit, because of the Gobber and the War Machines and everything. It's a nasty list, no question.
There's a lot there.
Yeah, but it just goes to show how there's this interesting interaction between the fact that you've got, say, an Orc gun line in there up at the top, and the Orc gun line might be very good against certain things, can keep other stuff in check. This is all part of this really interesting ecosystem which exists in this very varied meta.
And I think that goes back to what we were saying about the old world and the competitive meta for that versus 8th, where you've just got all this variety of lists at the top tables.
Exactly. There's just not, as I say, I don't think that there's nowhere near as much in old world, and it feels as though some things are a bit more universally powerful. If it's just rock, paper, scissors in old world, as I don't know a game where there are more than 3 different things, but in 8th, it feels as though there are 20 different things in the rock, paper, scissors game.
I'm going to digress on the old world, but there's a chance that they're going to do another round of of arcane journals with otherwise more different lists. More different
Well,
lists. That's
didn't they
terrible
say in
English,
the
but
Cathay announcement, in the second Cathay
Mm.
Arcane,
Hmm.
come on, say what you mean. These cryptic sphinx like in the second Cathay, before we even know about the first one.
Just to wrap up then on the event,
Mm.
I did think the camaraderie was excellent. We had a great meal on the Saturday night. Even after the meal, several of us went out for a few more beers, and
I know, and we
it
had
was great fun.
generosity in play as well.
Yes, that's right.
Talking,
Yeah,
wrote off what remained of the bill as well. Lovely gesture. Oh, there was definitely a huge. I think there was last year as well, but
yeah.
even more strong this time. There was this nice. There's a nice table at the top of this pub called the Bull that we've been to, and it's been really lovely to see that. And to feel that. Yeah, no, there's a nice. We don't. I don't think we have it here. A nice, got a kind of friendly photo at the end and stuff. And
Oh
so,
yeah, I
yeah,
should have got the photo.
yeah, no, it was there was definitely say an interesting feeling of I don't know because it's weird in a way because it's an old game, but there is a feeling of it being a small kind of community on a rock somewhere in the ocean, where as I say, it's the world around us has changed, but we're still there.
Brilliant. I was having a lovely conversation, not at the meal, but just after I think it was the end of the first day with Terra and Nikki about wood elves. It was brilliant. I loved it. I have to admit, you know my love of writing lists. I am tempted next year just to do the 5 games, just to see how I actually do.
Yes.
You should go in there, Mark, and pick like a minus list and just go and see what happens.
Well, let's not go too far. Yeah.
Well, it would be it would be an interesting experiment, certainly. And as I say, I think we could, we could do that. Yeah, it's thrilling to play, and it definitely got the bug back for me for eighth edition. And I played a bit more eighth actually since then. I went and picked I took Be'lakor. Oh yes, to Be'lakor, the controversial Be'lakor, who we were going to have and then didn't have. There was a bit of controversy around Be'lakor. But yes, I took Be'lakor to Nav's house, and he died horribly 3 times. He's not. I don't know, man. I mean, he looks good on paper, but as I say, I don't like shadow magic with warriors. I don't. Never mind. It's a whole kind of digression. But there you go. So I got the bug back a bit for eighth, I have to say, and so I have this tug of war between eighth and Old World a bit. And when I play a bit of eighth, I get worse at Old World, and also vice versa. Because they are very different systems, and so you do. I think if you play both of them, you can get confused.
Yeah, I noticed that. Go on, Mark.
I was going to say, I mean, I did notice actually the list submissions this year were the worst out of any of the previous 2 years, insofar as everybody forgetting what you could do in eighth and thinking it was Old World.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's like.
Oh, as in like there were lots of errors in the list, you mean?
Yeah, more errors than I think we've had before, but that's because everyone's now playing. Well, I say everyone,
Got lost in
a lot of them are playing Old World as well.
Well, I noticed that Drew, who came to the first 2 London Legends, I think he's gone native in Old World now, hasn't he?
Oh, he hasn't rebased his models, has he?
I don't think he has. No, I don't know, but I don't think he's coming back to eighth now.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think it's all a very, very kind of personalness in a way, because in a sense, if what you're interested in is maybe not so much the game, but the community around the game, and in a sense, and not necessarily, I don't know, that will bother, even if you like, I mean, I'm sure Drew would say he thinks eighth ed is a much better game than Old World, but yet the fact that Old World, in a sense, is where the kind of the action is and where there's developing a developing meta. Although I'm not sure I agree with that necessarily. I think eighth ed meta is developing more than an Old World, because I think that.
Yeah, I'm only teasing Drew there if he's watching. I don't know. I haven't spoken to him about whether he's still playing eighth or not.
No, you don't. You hate him.
Well, there's Brennan as well, who's been playing lots of Old World,
Mm.
and I don't think he's still playing eighth. I don't know. I need to speak to him as well.
There hasn't been the transfer of the eighth community and the ninth age crowd as well, I should say. There has not been the transfer to Old World. In ninth age, it's even more extreme. As I say, all of these really, really good players playing ninth, and when I say good, I mean super, super good. They don't play Old World at all. Or Adam Jones, tanker, very, very venerable ninth age player, eighth ed player. He came to one of the Old World events that I went to at Walsall and picked almost a kind of joke list, it seems to me, and was almost kind of just hanging out there. Almost it was for him beer and pretzels from the beginning. So I don't know. So it hasn't quite pulled in these eighth and ninth players, the guys who like cut their teeth in competitive eighth when they were probably in their 20s and really lived the game. That is the group that haven't been brought back in with Old World. Maybe the new changes to the rules and stuff might help do it, but they cast a long shadow, at least to me. So I'd like to see them play Old World, or at least
just on a little tangent here. So this is like my third. So I don't play events, as you well know, family, work, just I don't get the opportunity to go away. But London Legends is like the only event I go to, which is because we run it. And I really like this year when I turned up and you see all the familiar faces, I now get the buzz of what the tournament scene's like. It's not really about, there's a bit about winning, but it's about going and meeting all of the cool guys and girls who you see again and again. And this year was the first time when I turned up and I was like, yes, see everybody. And it was such a nice feeling. And I think that is, for me, what really made this event, because it was the third one. I saw everyone there. It was just so good to see them all. It was just like, seeing some really old friends again.
Yeah, it is like that. I mean, I played, obviously, in a sense, Mark, I'm in a sense privileged in being the opposite there. I've had the opportunity to play lots of competitive eighth. And what happens with people is that like, for example, with say like Nikki, I played her, I think, 4 times. And, you pick up conversations you had with people the last time, even though it's 6 months later. And it's just something very congenial and nice to that. And you have those relationships with, I probably got relationships like that with maybe 30 different people.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Loved it.
Just missing the Shetland boys.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's such a shame that they didn't come down.
Dale Taste Clark and Brian Turbo Duncan. Come back next time. Exactly.
Yeah, although I'm sure some of the people who were out drinking on the Saturday didn't miss them as much because they managed to get home to their hotels. And
in both cases, it was London. That was a thing. And Legends. Both words had very, very operative significance for them. They were legends and they were in London.